Iran, not just a country, a storm, a story carved in fire, cloaked in prophecy, and soaked in betrayal. For decades, the world has watched it burn, through revolution, isolation, sanctions, and silence. To many, Iran looks like it's collapsing. But what if we've misunderstood everything? What if Iran is not dying, but transforming? Beneath its deserts lie the bones of empires, the whispers of prophets, the blood of kings, and the ashes of martyrs. And above all, secrets powerful enough to shake the future of the entire world. Because Iran isn't just at war with the West, it's at war with its past, its soul, and something far older than Islam or politics. This is not just a geopolitical story. This is a spiritual fault line, a prophetic battleground. And if you look closely, you'll see the ground is cracking. To understand what's coming next, we must return to what was buried, to what was silenced, to what was never supposed to be found. The sands of Persia are shifting again, and when they do, the world will never be the same. Let the story begin. Part 1. The Empire that Refused to Die. To truly understand Iran today, we must strip away the headlines, the sanctions, the revolutions, and go back, far back. Long before Iran existed on modern maps, there was Persia, an empire so vast it stretched from the edges of Greece to the heart of India. At its height, it ruled over 40% of the known world. The Achaemenid Empire, the empire of Cyrus the Great. Cyrus didn't just conquer, he redefined what it meant to rule. He created the world's first charter of human rights. He allowed exiled peoples to return to their homelands. And while other kings ruled with fear, Cyrus ruled with vision. Sound familiar? Now look at Iran today, surrounded by enemies, misunderstood by the West, determined to chart its own destiny, regardless of the cost. Is this coincidence or something deeper? You see, Persians have never truly disappeared. They've simply changed shape. The empire collapsed, but the soul remained. It hid behind new names: Parthia, Sassanid, Safavid, and finally, Iran. But the spirit, that ancient burning spirit, has never died. And maybe, just maybe, it's been waiting for its moment to rise again. Let's go even deeper. Before Persia became a military superpower, it was something else. A land of mystery, a land of prophecy. At the heart of it all, Zoroaster, a prophet who lived thousands of years before Muhammad, Moses, or even Buddha. He spoke of a cosmic war, not between armies, but between truth and falsehood, light and darkness. Zoroastrianism, his belief system, shaped the foundations of good versus evil that would later influence Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Zoroaster predicted a time of great collapse, when humanity would forget who they were. But he also foretold a Saoshyant, a savior figure, who would arise at the end of time to restore divine order. Sound familiar? Now here's where it gets strange. Modern Iran may publicly embrace Islam, but under the surface, ancient flames are flickering. Many Iranians, especially the youth, are secretly turning back to their roots, to Zoroaster, to the old gods, to the empire before the veil of religion, because the truth is, something never sat right. Something about how their history was rewritten after the Arab conquests, how their language, culture, and spirit were forced underground. But you can only bury truth for so long. Today, the symbols of ancient Persia are returning. Cyrus the Great's tomb is now a site of quiet pilgrimage. Zoroastrian fire temples, once outlawed, are being rediscovered. And the language of the empire, Old Persian, is being revived in underground communities. The empire never died. It just went silent. And now, in the face of global chaos, many Iranians are asking, what if our future lies not in revolution, but in resurrection? And here's something even more provocative. Some analysts believe that the rise of Iran's assertiveness on the world stage, its nuclear ambitions, its defiance of the West, isn't just about politics. It's a psychological echo, a national memory, a reawakening of imperial identity. Iran doesn't see itself as a rogue state. It sees itself as heir to greatness, not a puppet, but a phoenix. And unlike empires that rot from within, Persia has always returned. Ask the Greeks, ask the Romans, ask history. And what if this isn't the last time? Because when you peel back the layers of modern Iran, the politics, the theology, the censorship, you don't find emptiness. You find a sleeping giant. You find a people who once ruled the world and who may believe it's time to do it again. The most dangerous thing about Iran is not its weapons, but its memory. The memory of when the world bowed to its wisdom, not its wrath. The memory of when it lit fires, not just for gods, but for truth. And now, with the modern world unraveling, that memory is whispering again. It's whispering through poems, through protests, through secret gatherings, through the silence between regime slogans and the heartbeats of a generation that remembers what their ancestors once were. So the question is not, will Iran rise? The question is, what will it rise as? Because maybe, just maybe, the empire is reawakening, but in a form no one expects. Part 2, the hidden war inside Iran. The story of Iran is not just about a nation under pressure from outside, it's about a nation imploding from within. But this isn't a war fought with tanks and missiles. This is something more elusive, more dangerous. A hidden war between generations, between tradition and transformation, between silence and awakening. On one side, you have the establishment, the clerical regime born from the 1979 Islamic Revolution, a system that merged religion with absolute political power. For over 40 years, they've ruled with one message: God is on our side, dissent is sin, obedience is sacred. But on the other side, a different fire is burning. This fire isn't political, it's generational. It's in the hearts of young women who refuse to be veiled against their will. It's in the minds of students who refuse to chant slogans they no longer believe in. It's in the voices of artists, hackers, intellectuals, those who have tasted a world beyond borders, beyond ideology, beyond fear. And now, those two worlds are colliding. But this war didn't begin in the streets. It began in the silence. In the tension you feel when a young woman walks past a government agent, head held high, veil barely clinging. In the encrypted messages sent from bedroom floors in Tehran, bouncing through VPNs, bypassing censors, reaching the outside world. The regime thinks they're controlling the narrative, but their greatest enemy isn't the CIA. It's a generation raised on forbidden ideas, streamed in through satellites, whispered in books, coded in memes. And then, in 2022, everything snapped. Her name was Mahsa Amini, a 22-year-old woman arrested by the so-called morality police for not wearing her hijab correctly. Within hours, she was dead. The regime claimed illness, but no one believed it. Her death was not just a tragedy, it was a rupture, a spark in a room soaked with gasoline. Protests erupted, not just by women, but by men, teenagers, professors, workers, even religious scholars. It wasn't just about a scarf, it was about control. It was about a people who had been quiet for too long. They chanted, "Women, life, freedom." Not a political slogan, a prophecy. The regime responded with bullets, with arrests, with internet blackouts. But something had already changed. A veil had lifted, not just from heads, but from hearts. The Mahsa Amini uprising was not the first protest, but it was different. It wasn't just political, it was spiritual. And that is what terrified the regime most. Because you can jail a protester, you can silence a journalist. But how do you jail an awakening? You see, this isn't simply a battle between government and people. It's deeper. It's a collision of worlds. On one side, those who still believe Iran must remain a theocracy. On the other, those who believe Iran must be reborn. And the divide runs through every home, every classroom, every heart. Mothers loyal to the revolution. Daughters dreaming of Paris, Tokyo, or Persepolis. Fathers quoting ayatollahs. sons quoting Nietzsche and Rumi. Even within the regime, cracks are forming. Whispers among the revolutionary guards, discontent among the educated elite, doubt behind the closed doors of the mosque, and fueling this all, technology. In a nation built on control, the internet has become a weapon of liberation. Through secret servers, underground networks, encrypted messengers, the truth is leaking out. The censors are relentless, but so is the hunger for truth. And now, for the first time in decades, Iranians are not just resisting, they are imagining a country not defined by fear, but by freedom, not bound by dogma, but by dignity. What we're witnessing is not simply a protest movement, it's the early tremors of a cultural earthquake. And like all earthquakes, you can't predict the moment it will explode, but you can feel the tension building. Because the war inside Iran isn't just about regime versus people. It's about something far older and far more powerful. It's about a buried identity rising, a spirit long suppressed, now whispering in the ears of a generation that refuses to forget. This is a war between the ghosts of ancient Persia and the cage of imposed belief, between inherited silence and a voice that refuses to be silenced any longer. The question now is, can the old structure hold, or is Iran about to collapse, so something entirely new can rise from its ashes? What if the war inside Iran isn't about regime versus people, but ancient spirit versus modern awakening? Part 3. Prophecies, Portals, and the Final Imams. To understand why Iran behaves the way it does, why it challenges global powers, resists reform, and risks isolation, you must understand one thing. They believe they are preparing the world for the return of a Messiah. This is not a metaphor, not a slogan, but a literal theological mission. In Iran, especially among the ruling elite, the 12-verse Shia belief system is not just faith. It is a framework for statecraft, war, and destiny. Let's break it down. According to 12-verse Shia Islam, the dominant sect in Iran, there were 12 imams, each descended from the Prophet Muhammad through his daughter Fatima and son-in-law Ali. These imams were not just leaders. They were seen as infallible, divinely guided, and spiritually pure. But the story doesn't end there. The 12th imam, known as Muhammad al-Mahdi, did not die like the others. According to Shia doctrine, he disappeared, went into occultation, and will one day return as the Mahdi, the guided one, to establish justice, defeat evil, and usher in a golden age before the day of judgment. This is not fringe theology. This belief is written into Iranian politics, sermons, and even military ideology. Former Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad famously opened his speeches with prayers for the Mahdi's return, believing that his government's actions could hasten it. And here's the chilling part. According to some interpretations, the Mahdi's return is not preceded by peace, but by chaos, wars, collapse, moral decay, an ungovernable world in need of divine intervention. In this view, the job of the faithful is not to prevent the chaos, but to withstand it, even accelerate it. Now ask yourself, what happens when a nation with oil, weapons, and an apocalyptic vision believes it is the midwife to messianic destiny? You begin to see why Iran is not easily swayed by threats or diplomacy. It does not see itself as a normal state. It sees itself as the axis of divine preparation. But here's where the mystery deepens. Most outsiders think Iran views America or Israel as its ultimate enemy. But in many religious texts and whispered teachings, the most dangerous enemy doesn't come from the West. It comes from within the region, from the corrupted heart of the Islamic world. Some Iranian scholars quietly interpret ancient writings to suggest that the great deceiver, often likened to an Islamic antichrist figure, will rise not from the Vatican or Washington, but possibly from within the Sunni Arab world. The implication, the war to come will not simply be between East and West, but within Islam itself, a civil war of prophecy. And Iran sees itself not just as a military force, but as a spiritual purifier, a nation that must endure global hatred to fulfill its sacred role. This idea has leaked into foreign policy. Iran funds proxy militias in Iraq, Syria, Yemen, and Lebanon, groups who often cite modest ideology. The goal isn't just political influence. It's to build a network of loyal believers, ready for the day the Mahdi returns, and the final war begins. Even the city of Qom, Iran's religious capital, is more than it appears. It's filled with shrines, seminaries, and rumors that portals of divine presence exist there. Spiritual veins, they say, connecting heaven and earth. Some Iranian clerics claim the Mahdi communicates through dreams, visions, and the faithful who listen. Are these just myths or preparations? Because while the world watches Iran's nuclear program, something deeper is being weaponized. Belief. A belief that time is running out, that destiny is near, that the return of the Mahdi is not centuries away, but imminent. And if you believe that, then every act of defiance isn't rebellion, it's prophecy. Every missile test, every cyber attack, every martyr's death is a step in a cosmic blueprint. And here's the terrifying possibility. What if they're right? What if, through intention or accident, Iran becomes the spark that sets the entire Middle East, maybe the whole world, on fire? What if what we think is geopolitical strategy is actually eschatological choreography? Because if Iran truly believes it is preparing the world for the Mahdi, then nothing is off the table. Not war, not isolation, not even annihilation, not if it serves the greater cause. And if they succeed, the entire balance of world power will tilt. But what happens when that ancient power is traded for modern alliances and secrets? What dark bargains have already been made in the shadows, behind closed doors, sealed not by scripture, but by blood? Stay with us. Part 4, The Deal with the Devil. Iran, on the surface, stands alone, defiant, sanctioned, cornered by the West. That's the image. But history often hides what headlines won't print, because behind every nation that dares to challenge the world order is a shadow network. A back room filled not with clerics or generals, but spies, oil men, arms dealers, and invisible hands. And Iran, it has made its deals. Deals that would make even the most loyal believer question everything. Let's go back to the 1980s. The world was stunned by a revelation, the Iran-Contra affair. While Iran publicly called the United States the Great Satan, documents later exposed that Washington was secretly selling weapons to Tehran. Yes, you heard that right. Under the table, missiles were traded for influence. Money from those arms sales was then funneled to right-wing militias in Latin America. All of it off the books. All of it denied, until it wasn't. And if that sounds like ancient history, think again, because that was just the beginning. In the decades since, Iran has been both enemy and partner, sometimes simultaneously, sometimes unknowingly, sometimes by design. The CIA, Mossad, and even the now-defunct KGB have all touched Iranian soil, sometimes through infiltration, sometimes through cooperation, always through layers of secrecy so thick even presidents were kept in the dark. One former intelligence officer once said, "There are two Irans, the one on the news and the one that exists beneath the table." So what's really going on? Let's talk about nuclear power. Publicly, Iran claims it seeks peaceful energy. Privately, intelligence leaks suggest it's come dangerously close to building a bomb multiple times. But here's the twist. Every time Iran got too close, someone backed off. A deal was struck. A program was paused. A scientist was assassinated, but not a war. Why? Because Iran holds leverage few nations understand. It sits at the crossroads of East and West. It can block oil. It can burn Israel. It can unleash militias in Yemen, Iraq, Lebanon, Syria. And perhaps most importantly, it can expose secrets. There are whispers, only whispers, of mutual blackmail, of files, videos, ledgers, hidden away in Tehran, Tel Aviv, and Washington. Evidence of deals that would end careers, end alliances, end governments. A former Mossad analyst once asked off camera, if Iran is truly isolated, why does it always survive? That's the question, isn't it? Perhaps because isolation is part of the game, a disguise, a cover for darker trades, oil in exchange for silence, weapons in exchange for stability, information in exchange for time, and sometimes souls in exchange for power. Think about it. How does a regime that was nearly overthrown during the Green Movement in 2009 suddenly crush a revolution without outside interference? Why do major cyber attacks on Iran's infrastructure mysteriously stop right after a closed-door negotiation? And why, despite endless talk of war, do global superpowers always stop just short? Because war would expose what diplomacy hides. Iran may chant death to America, but its leaders have Swiss bank accounts. They wear Rolexes under their robes. They invest in European property while banning Western culture at home. This is not hypocrisy. This is strategy. A double life. One for the faithful and one for the powerful. And in that second life, Iran is not just a pawn, but a player. It plays East against West. It offers Russia access to warm waters. It tempts China with oil and transit routes. It taunts America with nuclear brinkmanship, only to pull back at the last second, demanding concessions. Every side thinks they're using Iran. But what if Iran is using them? What if behind all the sanctions and speeches, Iran has been conducting its own orchestra of chaos, not to survive, but to ascend? Because every empire has its price, and every throne, modern or ancient, must be paid for, with silence, with sacrifice, and sometimes with a deal made in the dark. So what is Iran's ultimate goal? Is it a seat at the nuclear table? Is it the rebirth of Persian glory? Or is it something far more terrifying? A world where truth itself is just another currency. Because if the secret deals were ever revealed, if the documents were unsealed, if the recordings were leaked, entire governments would fall. Presidents, prime ministers, ayatollahs, all burned by the very fire they helped ignite. And still, the question remains, who really controls the future of Iran? The clerics, the revolutionaries, or the ghosts in suits hiding behind intelligence briefings and classified memos? Because the answer to that question might not just change Iran, it might change everything. But what happens if Iran decides it no longer wants to play the puppet or the puppet master, but something else entirely? Part 5. The Rebirth of Persia. We've spoken of empires, of revolutions, of secret deals and messianic prophecies. But now, we arrive at the most unexpected chapter in Iran's story. A chapter not defined by Islam or politics or war, but by memory. A memory older than the Quran, older than Arab conquest. A memory written in the stars and fire, the memory of Persia. Because beneath the black turbans and chants of the regime, beneath the walls of mosques and the iron of morality patrols, another Iran is stirring, and it looks nothing like the Islamic Republic. This Iran doesn't dream of nuclear arsenals or religious rule. It dreams of poetry, of music, of ancient temples and forgotten gods and stolen wisdom. This is the Iran of Hafez, Rumi, and Cyrus the Great, not of ayatollahs, but of artists, philosophers, visionaries. And the signs of its return are everywhere. Across Tehran, Shiraz, and Isfahan, young Iranians are quietly resurrecting their ancient identity. Not with violence, but with verse, with fashion, with fire. They wear Zoroastrian symbols on bracelets, etched into rings. They light candles on Nowruz, not just as tradition, but as quiet rebellion. They whisper names once banned, Mithra, Anahita, Ahura Mazda, not as prayers, but as reminders. We were something before we were conquered. And now it seems they want it back. You see, this isn't a demand for Western-style democracy. It's deeper than that. It's a spiritual restoration. Because to many Iranians, especially the youth, The problem isn't just theocracy. The problem is amnesia. They've been taught that their story began in 1979 or in 632 AD with the rise of Islam. But what if that wasn't the beginning, but the interruption? What if Iran's true origin lies in a time when fire temples burned day and night? When truth was a cosmic force? When humans were called to fight the lies of darkness by simply telling the truth? That's the core of Zoroastrianism, the ancient faith of Persia. And it's re-emerging, not through force, but through fascination. Zoroaster taught that each person is a soldier in the great cosmic war between truth and falsehood, not a slave to fate, but a partner in divine justice. Compare that to the political Islam enforced today, where obedience is demanded, dissent is punished, and doubt is forbidden. Is it any wonder that young Iranians are searching backwards to move forward? They're not rejecting faith itself. They're rejecting imported control. They're not demanding American values. They're demanding Persian memory. And that is something the current regime cannot contain. Because regimes can ban books, they can block websites, they can silence protests, but they cannot kill a whisper passed from grandmother to granddaughter, a poem recited at dawn, a symbol drawn on a notebook, a feeling that something older is calling. And now, even the elite are listening. Former clerics have been seen quoting pre-Islamic thinkers. Academics are publishing papers on the moral philosophy of ancient Persia. Filmmakers are inserting Zoroastrian themes into modern scripts. And among the diaspora, the movement is even louder. Iranians in London, Los Angeles, Paris, they're reviving holidays that predate Islam. They're restoring the language, the mythos, the spiritual grammar of a forgotten world. And the most shocking part? Even in the heart of Iran, this movement isn't being crushed, it's being watched. Carefully, nervously. Because the regime knows you can beat a protest, but you cannot beat a revival. And this is what we may be witnessing. Not a political revolution, not a foreign invasion, but a civilizational rebirth, a return to an identity stolen by time and conquest, a future that looks not to Mecca, but to Persepolis. So ask yourself, what if the future of Iran isn't Islamic? What if it isn't democratic? What if Iran's future is its ancient past resurrected? And if that's true, then the world must prepare for something we haven't seen in 2,000 years. Not an Iran reborn, but Persia returned. But what happens when this ancient identity awakens in a world not ready for it? What does it mean for politics, for religion, for global power itself? Stay with us, because what comes next could change how we see civilization itself, the choice that will shape the world. Iran stands at a crossroads, not between East and West, but between shadow and fire. One path leads deeper into silence, a nation muzzled by fear, chained by forgotten deals, ruled by men who fear the past as much as they fear the future. The other path is riskier, uncertain, but filled with light. The light of ancient memory, of untold stories, of a people rediscovering who they were before they were told what to become. Right now, something is shifting, not just in Tehran or Qom or the ruins of Persepolis, but in the hearts of millions. A generation that no longer fits the mold, that no longer repeats the chants, that no longer bows unless it chooses to. You won't see it on the nightly news. You won't read it in the headlines, because the truth is being filtered, censored, suppressed. But it's there, in every poem rewritten, in every veil removed, in every ancient name spoken aloud after centuries of silence. This isn't just about Iran, this is about all of us. Because when an ancient empire begins to rise again, when prophecy and politics collide, the ripple is global. This is not merely the story of a nation in crisis. It is the beginning of a new era, a spiritual, cultural, civilizational shift that may redefine how we understand power, faith, and identity itself. So now the question is no longer what will happen to Iran. The question is, are you watching history unfold or prophecy come true?